Me 26, wagie, posture like a question mark. Spent the last 5 years staring at Jira tickets and eating gas station, sushi skinny fat frame, ribcage visible, stomach like a bag of milk. Look in the mirror and see a shrimp in a hoodie. Decide it's time to change before my spine snaps from the weight of my own existential dread. Sign up for Iron Pit Gym. It's a dilapidated hellhole tucked between a laundromat and a vape shop. Membership is $20 and a tetanus shot plan. Go at 3 a.m. to avoid all human interaction. I cannot be perceived in this state. Arrive at 300 sharp smells, like rust, stale sweat, and bad decisions. Perfect only one working squat rack in the back corner. The lights are flickering like a horror movie approach. The bar with the confidence of a wet paper bag. Decide to be brave and try 95 pounds. I have never touched a barbell in my life. Cluelessly slide a 25-pound plate onto one side. Brain fog from 16 hours of blue light kicks in. Somehow load the other side entirely backward and off-center. The bar is a lopsided seesaw of doom. Step under it, hands shaking lift. Instant regret. The physics of my stupidity take over. Left side dips, right side shoots up. The iron starts sliding toward the floor. I'm pinned, knees buckling, about to be folded like a cheap lawn chair. Death by 95 pounds, the ultimate wagie humiliation. Suddenly a shadow looms over me, a massive hand, white with chalk, grabs the bar with one violent, effortless jerk. The weight is stabilized. I'm shoved out of the way like a piece of lint. The iron is racked with a deafening slang look up, trembling on the floor. She's 6 feet of pure muscle and intimidation, covered in tattoos that look like they were etched in a prison cell. Arms thicker than my legs, shirtless under a lifting belt. Sports bra soaked in sweat clouds of chalk dust, swirling around her like a vengeful spirit. She looks down at me. Her eyes are cold, piercing, and full of utter disgust. She doesn't say a word, just watches me struggle to find my breath and my dignity. The silence is heavier than the plates. I am a worm in her kingdom. I have never felt more small in my entire life. She turns her back on my trembling frame and walks back to her chalk bucket without a word. I scramble to my feet, lungs burning, and flee to the safety of the locker room. Spend the next 40 minutes staring at a rusted locker, waiting for my heart to stop trying to exit my ribcage. I return the next night, but I stay far away from the iron. The cardio section is my new sanctuary. 3 ancient treadmills that groan with every step, tucked into a dark corner. I set the pace to a brisk walk and try to disappear into the wall. The wall-to-wall mirrors are a tactical nightmare. I can see her in the background, a mountain of muscle silhouetted against the flickering lights. Every time I glance up, our eyes meet in the reflection, cold, unblinking, and utterly judgmental. I look away instantly, pretending to be fascinated by the treadmill's calorie counter, glancing back 5 minutes later. She's still staring. This continues for an entire week. I feel like a gazelle being watched by a lioness that isn't even hungry, just annoyed by my existence. Tuesday morning, 3:20. I'm 5 minutes into a light jog, sweating through my I Heart Java t-shirt. A heavy rhythmic thud approaches from behind. I see her reflection growing larger in the glass, a tattooed titan closing the gap. She reaches down and rips the power cord straight out of the wall outlet. The treadmill dies instantly. I nearly faceplant into the plastic dashboard as the belt stops dead. "Get off!" she rasps. Her voice sounds like gravel being ground into a fine powder. I stumble off the machine, legs shaking. I was using that," I stammer. "You were wasting my time," she retorts. She points a calloused finger toward the deadlift platform in the corner. "I watched you try to pull 45 pounds the other night. You looked like a question mark trying to lift a toothpick. Your spine is going to snap in half like a dry twig, and I'm not filling out the incident report." She marches to the platform, and I follow because her aura of pure aggression is impossible to resist. "Hinge, now." I try to bend over the empty barbell. "No, stop. You're rounding like a frightened cat, you absolute subhuman." She steps into my personal space, towering over me by several inches. She smells like citrus, sweat, and pure intimidation. She grabs my shoulders with hands that feel like iron vices. She physically wrenches my scapula back and down. "Chest out, head up. Stop looking at your pathetic feet." She kicks my shins into the correct position with the toe of her lifting shoe. You have the core stability of a bowl of warm oatmeal. For the next hour, she becomes my personal drill sergeant from hell. Every time my form slips, she hurls a fresh Greentext tier insult. Lift it, you desk-dwelling shrimp. My grandmother has more explosive power in her pinky than you have in your whole body. Are your abs made of cotton candy? Brace, you idiot. By 4:30, my legs are made of jelly, and my posture is terrifyingly straight. She looks me up and down, still disgusted. But the homicidal edge has softened to mere annoyance. Same time tomorrow, she grunts, wiping sweat with her forearm. If you touch that treadmill again, I'll use you as a foam roller. She turns and starts loading 405 onto her own bar without looking back. I limp toward the exit, wondering if I just found a trainer or a predator. Spend the next 18 hours researching supplements to prove I'm not a total lost cause. Order a tub of neon sludge nuclear sour apple from a sketchy site. The label says, "Warning, may cause heart palpitations and spiritual transcendence." Perfect. 2:50 a.m. I arrive early, clutching my duffel bag like a holy relic. I want her to see me taking the ritual seriously. Go into the locker room to mix the powder in private. The tub is pressurized from the delivery flight. I twist the lid. Thwomp. A pressurized blast of radioactive green dust explodes in my face. It's a neon catastrophe. I'm coated from head to toe in fine, sticky, sour-smelling silt. The locker room looks like an industrial accident at a Skittles factory. The door swings open. She's standing there, belt already cinched tight. She stares at the green cloud still hanging in the air. She stares at me, looking like a radioactive swamp creature, a silence longer than the Great Wall of China. She lets out a sigh that sounds like a tire deflating. She unhooks a damp, heavy towel from her shoulder and hurls it at my face. "Clean it up, toxic Avenger. You're wasting my rest window." I spend 10 minutes on my hands and knees, scrubbing neon green streaks off the linoleum. She stands over me, tapping a lifting shoe against the floor. "You're paying for the towel laundry," she grunts, "and you're spotting me on bench, now." I follow her out, smelling like a chemical spill. She loads the bar until it sags. 2 plates, then a 10, then a 5, 250 pounds of bone-snapping reality. "If I stall, you pull," she commands, sliding onto the bench. "If you drop it on me, I will haunt your browser history." I stand at the head of the bench, hovering over her. My hands are trembling as I hover them under the bar. She looks up at me, her eyes focusing with a predatory intensity. She grips the knurling and her knuckles turn white. Up on 3. 1, 2, 3. The weight leaves the rack. I can feel the heat radiating off her body. She lowers it to her chest, slow and controlled. The fabric of her sports bra strains under the pressure. She lets out a low, vibrating growl as she drives the bar back up. My nervous sweat drips onto the bench next to her ear. She doesn't flinch. She racks the weight with a violent, metallic crash. She sits up, her face inches from mine. The air between us is thick with the smell of iron and sour apple. She reaches out and wipes a smear of green powder off my forehead. Her thumb is rough, calloused, and surprisingly warm. "Same time tomorrow, shrimp. Bring better powder next time." I watch her walk away, my heart doing 180 beats per minute for reasons that have nothing to do with cardio. She stops mid-stride as a deafening boom of thunder shakes the corrugated metal roof. The flickering fluorescent lights overhead buzz one last time and die. The gym is plunged into a heavy, absolute darkness. A few seconds later, the emergency LEDs kick in, bathing the racks in a dim, blood-red glow. I look toward the high windows near the ceiling. They are completely obscured by a violent, swirling wall of white. The wind howls like a pack of wolves, rattling the thin warehouse walls. I walk to the front entrance and heave against the handle. It doesn't move an inch. A solid sheet of ice has welded the entire glass frame shut from the outside. The automatic slider is jammed with frozen, packed slush. She walks up behind me, her breath visible in the rapidly cooling air. "Door's frozen," she grunts, the usual venom missing from her voice. She tries the handle, her massive forearm tensing under her skin, but the ice holds firm. Great. Trapped in a tin can with the human highlighter. The temperature begins to plummet as the heating system fails to kick back on. "Stretching room," she commands, pointing toward the back corner. It's smaller, we can trap the heat in there. We retreat to the 10 by 10 box, surrounded by foam rollers and yoga mats. We sit on the floor, the red emergency light making the room feel like a bunker. The aggressive, hyper-intense persona she wears like armor seems to slip. Boredom and the cold have a way of stripping everything back. I reach into my bag and pull out 2 mega bulk protein bars. They are squashed into flat, sad rectangles and still smell faintly of sour apple. I hold one out to her. She looks at it, then at me, and takes it with a small, weary nod. "Thanks," she says softly. We sit cross-legged in the dark, the roar of the blizzard the only sound left. "Why do you come here at 3 a.m.?" I ask, the silence finally emboldening me. I expect a joke about my posture or my weak core. Instead, she pulls her knees to her chest and stares at her chalk-stained knuckles. "Too many people in the daylight," she whispers. "Too many eyes, too much noise. I get overwhelmed, panic attacks that make my lungs feel like they're full of glass. In here, at this hour, I can just be strong. I don't have to be seen." The tattooed titan looks surprisingly small in the dim red light. The wall she built around herself hasn't just cracked, it's gone. I tell her about my JIRA tickets, the blue light isolation, and the fear of being a shrimp. She lets out a soft, genuine laugh that doesn't sound like grinding gravel. "You're a dork. But you're the only one who didn't run away when I started yelling at you." We sit shoulder to shoulder on the purple mats, sharing the crushed bars. No insults, no ego, no expectations. Just 2 night shift ghosts waiting for the world to thaw. I realize for the first time that I'm not shivering anymore. The sun eventually rose, the ice melted, and the doors creaked open. We went our separate ways into the morning light without a word. But the 3 a.m. ritual has fundamentally changed. It isn't an accident anymore. 2:59 a.m. sharp. I pull my beat-up sedan into the gravel lot. Her blacked-out SUV pulls into the spot next to me at the exact same second. We walk to the door together in a silence that finally feels comfortable. I reach into my bag before we even hit the racks. I pull out a chilled bottle of Neo Hydrate Starlight Lychee. It's an obscure brand that tastes like perfume and electricity. I saw her staring at the empty vending machine slot for it weeks ago. I hold it out, not looking her in the eye. She takes it, her calloused fingers brushing against my palm. "You remembered," she grunts, a tiny, genuine smirk playing on her lips. We head toward the weights, the gym hours alone. I'm doing rows, she's doing accessory work with a heavy kettlebell. I set my gallon water jug down on the bench. Stuck to the side is a faded, pixelated sticker of a golden wing and a cracked staff. She stops mid-swing. The kettlebell hits the mat with a thud. She walks over, leaning down to squint at the plastic in the flickering light. "No way," she breathes, her voice losing its gravelly edge. "Is that a Covenant of the Eternal Night Guild crest?" I blink, stunned that she even recognizes the symbols. "Yeah, it's from Etheria Online. The niche hardcore MMO that lost its last official server in 2019. I nod slowly, my heart racing for a different reason now. Her eyes go wide, losing their predatory coldness entirely. "I'm Valkyrie X, the server-first holy healer." My jaw hits the rubber flooring. "You're the legendary healer who solo carried the World Eater raid?" She lets out a loud, melodic laugh that echoes through the empty warehouse. "And you're Shadow Step, the idiot rogue who kept dying to the floor lava." We completely forget the workout. We migrate to the leg press machine and just sit there. I'm on the seat. She's perched on the heavy footplate, knees tucked to her chest. We spend the next 60 minutes in the most intense debate of my life. The crit build was objectively better for mana efficiency, I argue, gesturing wildly. It was useless if your tank was a squishy moron who couldn't hold aggro, she counters. She uses a piece of lifting chalk to draw a complex talent tree on the black upholstery. We're talking about frame data, cooldown resets, and the legendary loot we never got. The 6-foot-tall engine of destruction is geeking out harder than I am. Her face is animated, her hands moving as she explains her optimal raid rotations. I'm not looking at her tattoos or her massive shoulders anymore. I'm looking at the way her eyes light up when she talks about her favorite digital world. The 3 a.m. gym is no longer a place of quiet penance. It's a lobby for 2 players who finally found their party member. 4:30 a.m. hits, and we haven't moved a single plate in an hour. We're going to lose our gains if we keep this up, Rogue, she says, standing up. She wipes the chalk talent tree away with her towel, grinning. She ruffles my hair with a hand that could probably crush a bowling ball. Be ready tomorrow. We're doing a heavy leg day for real. And you're explaining why you think the Paladin nerf was justified. She walks away humming a 16-bit boss theme I haven't heard in years. I sit there staring at the empty leg press, my posture straighter than it's ever been. The air inside the gym is thick with a biting, crystalline frost. My breath comes out in plumes of white that catch the flickering emergency lights. The industrial heater in the ceiling lets out a final, metallic wheeze and dies. She arrives 5 minutes later, wearing an oversized, moth-eaten hoodie. Her nose and ears are flushed pink from the midnight air. "Heater's cooked," she grunts, her voice more breathy than usual. We try to start our warm-up sets, but the iron is a special kind of cruel tonight. The barbell feels like it's trying to fuse to my palms through the cold. "Forget the gains. I'm not getting frostbite for a leg day," she says. She grabs the edge of a heavy blue wrestling mat from the wall. "Help me. We're making a perimeter." We drag the thick mats into the small stretching room. We stack them into a makeshift fort, blocking the draft from the hallway. It's a cramped, dark little sanctuary of foam and vinyl. We sit on the floor, our shoulders pressed firmly against each other. The heat radiating off her is like a furnace in the sub-zero room. I pull out my phone, the screen glowing bright in our little cave. "I found a mobile co-op port of Etheria," I whisper. Her eyes light up, the predatory coldness replaced by pure nerd joy. "No way! Does it have the Shadow Crypt raids?" We huddle over the screen, our faces inches apart. I'm the rogue, she's the healer. Our thumbs dance across the glass in perfect practiced synchronicity. She's whispering commands, her voice low and intense. "Dodge left, you're standing in the fire again." "Heal me, Valkyrie, I'm at 10%. We clear the dungeon boss with a final, pixelated explosion. The victory music plays softly, a tinny 8-bit fanfare in the silence. The adrenaline fades, leaving behind a heavy, cozy exhaustion. The only sound left is the wind rattling the warehouse's corrugated roof. She leans her weight more heavily against my side. I don't move. I barely breathe. I can feel the steady, slow rhythm of her heart through the thick cotton. The phone screen dims and goes black. Slowly, her head begins to tilt, heavy and certain. She lets out a long, soft sigh that smells like peppermint tea. Her forehead grazes my jaw before her head comes to rest on my shoulder. The Valkyrie is fast asleep. Without the scowl and the chalk dust, she looks soft. I sit there, perfectly still, a human kickstand for a sleeping titan. My left arm starts to go numb, but I wouldn't move for $1 million. I stare at the red emergency light reflecting off the mats. The IT wagie and the world-first healer, hiding from the world. The cold doesn't touch me anymore. I've never felt more important than I do right now. I just wait for the morning, keeping watch while she rests. The sun eventually bleeds through the high, frosted windows. She stirs, her eyelashes fluttering against her cheek, before she realizes where she is. She doesn't pull away quickly. She just stretches, her joints popping like bubble wrap. "Breakfast," she grunts, her voice thick with sleep. We pack up the mats in a comfortable domestic silence. The rusty Anchor Diner is 3 blocks away and smells like 1974. We sit in a corner booth, the vinyl cracked and cold. She orders a trucker's special, 6 eggs, a pound of hash browns, and a side of steak. I watch her dismantle the plate with the same terrifying efficiency she uses on the squat rack. It becomes our new 5 a.m. sanctuary, the IT wagie and the tattooed titan, sharing a bottle of cheap maple syrup. Between bites, she tells me about her day job as a night shift security tech. I tell her about the soul-crushing boredom of database management. We aren't just gym ghosts anymore. We're 2 people sharing the world's loneliest hour. A week later, the peace is shattered. I'm at the rack, grinding through my sets of 75-pound bench presses. My chest is burning, but I'm keeping my elbows tucked just like she taught me. The front door chimes, and a group of 4 frat bros spill in. They're loud, obnoxious, and smell like a spilled keg. They head straight for the dumbbells, hogging the bench next to me. "Look at this guy," one whispers, nodding toward my bar. "I think my sister warms up with that weight," another snickers. I try to ignore them, but my hands start to shake. I can feel their eyes on my shrimp frame, their ego filling the room like a bad smell. Valkyrie is across the gym, loading her final deadlift set. She doesn't even look up as she cinches her belt. She steps to the bar, grips the knurling, and rips 400 pounds into the air. She holds it at the top, a statue of pure, unadulterated power. Then she lets go. The weight hits the floor with a deafening metallic crash that makes the frat bros jump. The silence that follows is absolute. She doesn't wipe her brow. She just marches over, her boots thudding against the rubber mats. She stops 3 inches from the biggest guy's face. "You find something funny about his progress?" she rasps. Her voice is low, vibrating with a physical threat. The guy tries to puff out his chest, but he's looking up at her chin. "We were just joking around, lady." "I'm not a lady. I'm the person who's going to fold you like a lawn chair if you don't shut up." He's in here at 4 a.m. putting in work while you're still sweating out cheap tequila. Your form is dog shit, your ego is fragile, and your presence is polluting my gym. Free weights are for people who actually lift. Go play on the ellipticals. She doesn't move until they grab their bags and scuttle toward the cardio section. They don't look back. She turns to me, the terrifying glare melting into a small, lopsided smile. "Don't let the NPCs get to you, Shadow Step. Get back under the bar. You've got 2 reps left." I take a deep breath, the adrenaline fueling my grip. For the first time, I don't feel like a shrimp. I feel like I'm exactly where I belong. I squeeze the bar and drive. The iron feels lighter than it did 10 minutes ago. Lockout, rack. She nods, the first sign of real respect in her eyes. "Good. Now do it every night for 2 months." The weeks blur into a rhythm of iron and 8-bit soundtracks. My posture isn't a question mark anymore. It's an exclamation point. My hoodies are starting to feel tight around the shoulders. The bag of milk stomach has flattened into something solid and real. Today is the day. The big one. 2 45-pound plates glinting under the flickering gym lights. The 135-pound milestone. To the gym bros, it's a warm-up. To the IT wagie, it's the final boss of the expansion. I lie down on the bench, heart hammering against my ribs. Valkyrie stands over me, her hands already coated in fresh white powder. "Don't overthink the frame data, Shadow Step," she whispers. "Just move the world." I grip the steel, knuckles white, lift off. The weight feels like a mountain trying to crush my sternum. I lower it, slow and controlled, touch, drive. It stops halfway up. The sticking point. My arms are shaking like a corrupted server under a DDoS attack. "Push, you idiot!" she screams, her voice echoing off the corrugated metal. "Healer's got you! Push!" I roar, a sound I didn't know a human being could make. The bar inches upward. 1 inch, 2, clang. It's in the rack. I've barely exhaled when 160 pounds of muscle hits me like a freight train. She tackles me right there on the bench, a violent explosion of joy. "Yes, you did it." She wraps her massive tattooed arms around my neck in a bone-crushing hug. A cloud of white chalk explodes between us, coating my shirt and hair. She's laughing, a wild, triumphant sound that fills the empty warehouse. I'm pinned under her, my face pressed into the warm crook of her neck. She smells like citrus, sweat, and victory. Her heart is racing against my chest, fast and heavy. Suddenly, the cheering stops. She realizes she's basically straddling me on the weight bench. She pulls back just an inch, her hands still resting on my shoulders. Her face is inches from mine, flushed deep red under the gym's dim lights. I can see the individual flecks of gold in her eyes and the damp hair at her temples. The silence is heavier than the 135 pounds I just lifted. She clears her throat and practically leaps off me, stumbling slightly. She starts aggressively dusting imaginary chalk off her leggings. Good job, rogue," she mumbles, her voice suddenly small and shaky. I sit up, my skin tingling where she touched me, my brain completely fried. I try to say something, but the words are stuck in my throat. We finish the rest of the workout in a heavy, vibrating silence. Every time our eyes meet in the mirror, we both look away instantly. I've never been more focused on my accessory lifts. She's never been more focused on her stretching. The air in the 3 a.m. gym is suddenly very, very thin. I can't breathe, as I walk her to her SUV in total silence. The cold air hits my face, but the heat from her hug is still there. We don't say a word as she drives away into the gray dawn. I don't sleep for the rest of the morning. The feeling of her heart against my chest is burned into my skin. Spend the next 3 days at my desk staring at the same line of code. My brain is a tab with 100% CPU usage. Friday arrives. Tell my supervisor I have a medical emergency. Technically true, my heart is doing 140 beats per minute just thinking about this. Drive 2 hours to a community center that looks like a repurposed hangar. The air inside is thick with the scent of ammonia and nervous sweat. I find a seat in the highest row of the bleachers, tucked behind a pillar. I am a rogue in full stealth mode. She's already on the floor, pacing like a caged panther. She looks terrifyingly focused. Her singlet is black and simple, her tattoos standing out like war paint. She's not the girl who sleeps on my shoulder or argues about mana. She's a force of nature. I watch her crush her squats and her bench press. She's in second place going into the final deadlift. The crowd is loud, the music is heavy metal, and the pressure is palpable. She steps onto the platform for her third and final attempt. The bar is loaded with 425 pounds, a personal record, a state record. She reaches for the bar, but her hands are shaking. She looks up at the crowd, and I see it. The glass in the lungs panic she told me about. She's staring into the sea of faces, and she's starting to drown. I can't let her fail the encounter. I stand up on the top bleacher, ignoring the quiet please signs. I reach into my bag and pull out a massive neon yellow poster board. I spent all night painting it with a steady hand. Valkyrie X, cast divine favor. It's covered in pixelated gold wings and 8-bit healing sparkles. I hold it high, shaking it with everything I have. She scans the crowd, her eyes desperate and wide. She finds the neon glow in the back corner. She sees the dorky IT wagie holding a sign about a dead MMO. The panic in her eyes vanishes instantly. A smile breaks across her face, wide and genuine and beautiful. She lets out a sharp, joyful breath. She turns back to the bar with a new kind of intensity. She isn't lifting for the judges or the record. She's lifting for the party. She grips the steel, her knuckles turning white. With a roar that silences the entire building, she rips the weight upward. It doesn't even slow down at her knees. Lockout. The referee's whistle is drowned out by the roar of the crowd. 3 white lights. She drops the bar, and it sounds like a thunderclap. She doesn't celebrate with the coaches. She turns around and points a chalk-white finger directly at me. I'm cheering so hard, my throat feels like it's bleeding. The healer just cleared the hardest raid of her life, and I finally feel like more than just a background NPC. She jumps off the platform and barrels into me before the judges can even finish their scores. She smells like victory, chalk dust, and high-grade ammonia. We bypass the trophy ceremony, her hand locked firmly around my wrist as she drags me to the exit. The drive to her place is a blur of orange streetlights and heavy metal humming on the radio. Her apartment is a chaotic sanctuary of high-end hardware and low-effort living. Crumpled gym clothes are strewn across the floor next to a $3,000 liquid-cooled PC. Action figures from Etheria Online stand guard over a stack of empty microwave meals. Wall-to-wall shelves are packed with giant protein tubs and dusty manga volumes. She collapses onto a velvet sofa that's seen better decades and lets out a long, ragged exhale. "Pizza's on the way," she mumbles, tossing me a bag of frozen peas. "Put that on my shoulder, Rogue. I'm falling apart." I sit beside her on the edge of the cushion, carefully positioning the ice pack. Her skin is hot to the touch, the muscles still twitching from the massive adrenaline dump. The pizza arrives 20 minutes later, greasy, cheap, and tasting like the best meal I've ever had. We eat in the soft glow of her dual monitors, the RGB lights bleeding neon purple into the room. She stops mid-bite, staring down at her hands resting on her lap. The white chalk is mostly gone, but the calluses are deep, yellowed, and permanent. "I was going to quit," she says, her voice suddenly losing its gravelly edge. "Not just the gym, not just the lifting. I was going to quit everything." I stop chewing, looking at her in the dim light. The Titan looks smaller than I've ever seen her, her shoulders slumped and weary. "I was in a hole so deep I couldn't see the sky anymore," she whispers. "Then I saw this idiot loading a bar entirely backward at 3 a.m. And I realized I wasn't the only ghost left in the machine. She turns to face me, her eyes wet and shimmering with a vulnerability that hits harder than any lift. You didn't judge me. You didn't stare at the ink or the muscle like I was a freak. You just showed up, every single night. You waited for me. You saved me, Shadow Step. You pulled my aggro when I was about to wipe. My heart feels like it's hitting a new personal record, hammering against my ribs. I reach out, my hand trembling just as much as it did that first night at the rack. I gently cover her rough, powerful hand with my own. She doesn't pull away. She interlaces her fingers with mine, squeezing tight. The contrast is absurd. My smooth IT hands against her iron-forged, calloused palms. She leans in, the scent of citrus and vanilla and sweat hitting me all at once. The space between us vanishes in the glow of the gaming peripherals. It isn't a movie kiss, it's desperate, tender, and tastes faintly of pepperoni and salt. Her lips are surprisingly soft, a sharp contrast to the hard-won muscle of her frame. I pull her closer, my hand resting on the small of her back as she melts against me. Surrounded by empty supplement tubs and flickering LEDs, the world finally feels quiet. Just 2 players in a private lobby, finally done with the grind. The 3 a.m. ritual isn't a workout anymore. It's a life. I'm not a shrimp. She's not a monster. We're just home.